Welcome, everyone. This is Danny Haiphong, and you are watching and listening to this in two different places. The first is the Left Lens on YouTube, and the second is my Patreon at patreon.com/Danny Haiphong. This is a reading of my last published article in the Black Agenda Report. That article is titled Julian Assange and the Poisoned American Psyche. If you can support both the Left Lens and myself, Danny Haiphong, you can subscribe to patreon.com/Danny Haiphong. You can also donate to theblackAgendaReport.com. To begin, the article goes as follows. The U.S. effort to extradite Julian Assange from the UK continues, despite the so-called revelation that the CIA plotted to kill him. It continues despite the fact that a key witness in the Department of Justice's case against Assange, FBI informant Sigurdur Þórðarson, not only admitted to lying to the prosecution last summer, but has also been apprehended by authorities in Iceland. According to the Icelandic newspaper Stundin, Þórðarson has been accused of going on a quote-unquote crime spree, which includes serious charges of financial fraud. Þórðarson's history of sexual abuse, pedophilia, and lying under oath in U.S. courts should close the case to extradite Assange. Yet, the Biden administration has made no indication of doing any such thing. Julian Assange's case is indicative of a poisoned American psyche that has suffered from prolonged exposure to what Martin Luther King Jr. called the triple evils of capitalism, racism, and militarism. In the modern era, these evils have consolidated into a military media industrial complex which has effectively merged the interests of corporations, military institutions, and the so-called quote-unquote mass media. The United States is the only country in the world where majorities of people hold a negative view of WikiLeaks and believe Assange to be a criminal. That's because the corporate media generally ignores Julian Assange's case. And when it is covered, Assange is portrayed as nothing more than an agent of a foreign government and an international criminal of the highest order. The Yahoo report on the CIA plot to kill Assange only reinforced the lie that the imprisoned journalist was an agent of Russia. According to Joe Loria of Consortium News, Yahoo reported that Russian informants planned on sneaking Assange out of the Ecuadorian embassy in 2017. The claim was made up by an intelligence contractor, UC Global, in order to keep its $200,000 per month contract with the CIA. The authors of the Yahoo report, which includes Russiagate enthusiast Michael Isikoff, left out this inconvenient truth from their story. The attempt to connect Assange with Russia is not a new phenomenon. Ever since WikiLeaks released the DNC's emails implicating the Democrats in election rigging and Vault 7, a series of documents revealing the CIA's immense hacking capabilities, the U.S. corporate media has worked overtime to portray Assange as an agent of the Kremlin dedicated to undermining the United States. Assange is repeatedly maligned by the U.S. elite because his award-winning journalism has exposed the criminality of the U.S.-led imperialist world system. His case demonstrates that propaganda works. Leading Democrats have cheered on censorship in a bid to ensure that Assange's work cannot serve as an antidote to the poisoned American psyche. Furthermore, the U.S. effort to murder Assange is part and parcel of a larger campaign to manufacture consent for endless war. The entanglement of Assange and Russiagate's big lie that Russia rigged the 2016 election with the help of WikiLeaks is not only a coordinated operation to discredit his work, but also a key component of the U.S.'s military campaign against Russia. Of course, Russiagate is the only one big lie in a basket of lies told about Assange in U.S. media. U.S. spook agencies have used their endless media access to frame Assange as both an enormous threat and an unstable, careless actor. For the years Assange languished in the Ecuadorian embassy, U.S. and Western media portrayed Assange not as a victim, but rather a deranged individual who has only punished himself by refusing to surrender to the U.S. quote-unquote justice system. The truth is that UN Special Rapporteur Niels Melzer has already confirmed that Assange is a victim of torture, an experience that is validated by his long-term isolation in the embassy and his treatment now in Belmarsh prison, popularly known as the UK's Guantanamo Bay. The United States is seeking to destroy Assange and use him as an example of what happens to those who dare use journalistic methods to meaningfully expose its many crimes. Julian Assange's fate is thus intimately tied to the U.S.'s supposedly beloved right to free speech. The treatment of Assange renders free speech a farce within the so-called quote-unquote civilized Western world system. More than this, Assange is a reflection of the repressive roots of the U.S.-led imperialist system. Under this system, democracy has always been an exclusive privilege of the rich. The frame-up and imprisonment of Assange follows a long U.S. tradition of violent repression against social movements and organizations that dare play a role in the rectification of historic injustices. This legacy includes, but is not limited to, the violent methods employed to silence black people during the period of mass enslavement and the equally violent means wielded during Jim Crow to ensure black people were stripped of political and economic power following emancipation. The anti-communist crusade against radical intellectuals and labor organizers during the Cold War laid the basis for the imprisonment of Assange by targeting all critics of oppression as quote-unquote Reds. The basis for the imprisonment of Assange is part of COINTELPRO and the larger U.S. government campaign to destroy black indigenous liberation movements, a practice that helped dismantle entire organizations such as the Black Panther Party and produce dozens of political prisoners like Leonard Peltier and Mumia Abu-Jamal, who have been locked behind prison walls for decades on political grounds. The late Black Agenda Report executive editor Glenn Ford believed that the names of political prisoners should be said with as much ferocity and frequency as the names of black people slain by police. It is also true that the names of political prisoners such as Mumia Abu-Jamal should be said in the same sentence as Assange. U.S. political prisoners and Assange share key similarities. Assange is being punished for his commitment to truth and justice, just as Mumia Abu-Jamal and U.S. political prisoners are punished for their struggle to liberate humanity from the repressive forces that Assange has exposed. And just as Assange has seen his character villainized, so too have U.S. political prisoners been depicted as cop killers and criminals to justify their ongoing incarceration. Julian Assange's freedom is imperative because it is the kind of journalism, because it is his kind of journalism, which helps develop the power of the people through elevating their understanding of the oppressive realities that shape the global system of imperialism. WikiLeaks' contribution helped break the cycle of U.S. public support for endless war. The attack on Assange and WikiLeaks has made U.S. war propaganda that much more effective, as evidenced by recent polling data that suggests a majority of the U.S. population supports a military intervention in Taiwan against China. The American psyche will remain poisoned until a higher level of consciousness exists among left political forces that can propel them to develop a winning campaign to free Julian Assange and all political prisoners. Freedom for Assange will not only save Julian Assange's life, but also the future of journalism itself. On October 24th, there is an event hosted by Randy Credico and the good folks who are standing up for Julian Assange. It'll feature Margaret Kimberly of Black Agenda Report. It will feature Margaret Kunstler, the wife and also advocate of the great lawyer, left-wing lawyer, William Kunstler. There will also be Lee Camp and many others joining that event on October 24th. Go to Randy Credico's YouTube page and you can watch that. We should all rally to free Julian Assange and all U.S. political prisoners domestically and abroad. Thank you for listening to this reading of my last published article on blackagendareport.com. To support this work, subscribe to patreon.com/Danny Haiphong, and also subscribe to blackagendareport.com. Thank you so much.